taking off on its maiden flight, piloted flight. Mercedes-Benz was working on a giant airplane that was an airplane carrier for a smaller bomber, several fighters, or about a dozen cruise missiles. Basically, the V2 is the V1 is a cruise missile. Enough about airplanes. Rocketry. They had extensive rocket engine design from the 20s, before even Hitler came to power. The German aviation societies and the German secret societies. Excellent. Can we have the next tray, please? It's right there. Rocketry. Very quickly. The Germans was strapping rockets to everything that moved. Personnel rockets. For the elite SS crack troops. Much later, the Americans developed similar designs. The Rocketeer. That's probably a true story, and somebody really developed such a device that could make you fly. I suspect that a lot of the science fiction films that we see these days are just basically regurgitation of something that really happened in secret somewhere. Rockets launched from tanks, or rockets to lift a tank if it gets mired in a bog or in a trench. Giant rockets that would lift a 20-ton Tiger tank. This is the supersonic glider that I finally found a photograph of it. This is the Lippisch DM-1 was the first delta wing aircraft and a supersonic glider.
What year?
This is late 30s. Here we see a family of rockets. The air-to-ship or air-to-surface Henschel rocket, radio controlled. The improved version of it, they had about 20 models of these rockets. This is the V1. These are anti-aircraft rockets. This is the Enzian E4 anti-aircraft rocket made out of the Comet, Messerschmitt 163 Comet rocket plane. This is the Rheintochter two-stage anti-aircraft rocket, the prototype of the SAM missile, the Russian SAM missile. And this is the Schmetterling, the butterfly. They had about 20 models of anti-aircraft rockets. This is the Enzian in starting position. It was developed from the Messerschmitt 163. It was an unmanned 163. This is the Wasserfall. No, I'm sorry, this is the Rheintochter on starting position and in flight, successful flight. Some of the bombers here that we talk about in basically they had them in 4, in 2, in 4, and in 6 engine configuration. This was the one built in Russia. Some of them were all kinds of different configurations were tried. This is the Wasserfall stratospheric supersonic anti-aircraft rocket. No, just advanced rocketry. And this is the Horten flying wing plane that flew 50 years before the B-2 plane flew. These were rockets that were fired by submarines from underwater against attacking ships. They were working on firing V2s from submerged platforms that were schlepped behind submarines and wanted to fire them at New York from underwater, from pretty close from the city. This is the twin-engine Arado bomber taking off with rocket assists. A whole family of exocet type missiles, air-to-ship missiles, the Henshaw. This is subsonic, this is a supersonic rocket. Extremely advanced designs. I mean, it took the Americans 20, 30 years to regurgitate what the Germans had. The American and the British engineers were astonished at the variety of stuff that they found in the underground bases. This is a Royal Air Force engineer examining a Henshaw anti-ship missile. They had about half a dozen ships that were sunk with this missile. This is Dr. Kramer's X-4, which is this is a wire-guided air-to-air missile that was installed on their twin-engine Messerschmitt 262, with their turbojet twin-engine planes. The first air-to-air missile in the world. This is a 4-stage unguided missile, the Fire Lily, prototype of many such missiles in the subsequent Russian and British arsenal and American arsenal. The original A3 rocket, the prototype of the V2. This is a wing version of the V2. Very important drawing because they fired wing versions and they also had manned wing versions. And when they would go in orbit, they go to 120 kilometers upward, which is about 20 kilometers higher than the Vostoks, than the Mercuries or the Geminis.
They actually got them into orbit?
So basically they had suborbital space flights with their manned versions of their V2 rockets. And they used these wing versions for re-entry, for gliding. They also had a 2-stage ICBM, the America rocket, which we would come later on, that was fired at the East Coast with the main version V2 on top of it. Now, so what's the bottom line? The Germans had more than enough of fantasy, of engineering power, of research and development brilliance to produce the designs that we are about to talk right here. Aircraft with circular wings have been produced on numerous occasions. This is, by the way, a design made by another German engineer, but I don't think that it had any anti-gravity. I'm not sure. I have to check because there may have been some camouflage anti-gravity driving sign. But anyway, there have been a lot of attempts to produce circular craft with conventional means. This is a basically between the wars attempt. Somebody saw, a designer saw a saucer fly by and he said, gee, this is maybe a great idea to make a wing. Why don't we try? This is exactly how this plane appears. That's not even the first one. This is a kind of a British colonizer's, what is it, helmet. Like the Africa called.
Safari helmet?
Safari helmet. Some wings or something. We see a 6-cylinder inline engine with a giant propeller. This is basically an attempt to build a saucer with the technology of Wright brothers. This guy saw a saucer flying. He even saw it making high G maneuvers, basically banking sharply. And he decided to build one. It may even resemble the shape of some of the government saucers that he may have seen, because at that time the government already had Tesla-built saucers that were flying successfully. All these craft were basically made for debunking purposes. They were designed not to fly. They were designed not to fly because they put the propeller in the middle and the cabin around. The Germans did the other way around. The cabin in the middle, everything else rotates in order to maximize the anti-gravity effect. Here they minimized it by putting the propeller in the middle, just for the proper media purposes. They wanted to debunk, to prove to the world that, well, it's next to impossible to make a flying UFO. They had similar craft, but these are more like ducted fan craft, air cushion craft. There would be a slide